You're watching the Daily Rundown, formerly with Chuck Todd. The president will hold a news conference just about 2 hours from now, wrapping up a trip to Europe that has been overshadowed by foreign policy crises, from the rise of ISIS to the conflict in Ukraine. Chuck Todd is, of course, NBC's political director and the new moderator of Meet the Press. You've sat on that side of the desk a lot of times. Never on this show before.
Never on this show. My name is gone up there on the banner, you know.
Yeah, it was a quick change. It's a quick change. Revolving chairs.
I hear you.
Hard to fill your seat. But if we can, let's focus on the topic at hand. You're going to be interviewing President Obama, an exclusive interview. A lot of questions for him, everything from immigration to ISIS, certainly. But I want to ask you specifically about ISIS right now. We're about a week removed from we don't yet have a strategy, at least militarily, as it relates to ISIS in Syria right now. Where do they stand, given they say they have a core coalition coming together right now? Is it satisfactory, their answer at this point?
I don't know, but it certainly sounds like to me we're on the verge of essentially declaring war on ISIS. When you think about the new language the president used this week about destroy, it was almost similar to destroy, destruct, and decay. You know, Al Qaeda, the similar language that he's trying to use with ISIS. Well, that was a war. Okay, the whole war authorization wasn't just about Iraq. It was about going after Al Qaeda wherever they are. And you get the sense that all of a sudden, after a lot of debate, internal disagreements about how to do this, that they're trying to devise, essentially saying, okay, ISIS is not about Syria, ISIS isn't about Iraq, ISIS isn't about Jordan, ISIS is about ISIS. So the question is, how do they do it? How do they build this coalition? Where do they go about it? And I think that's, to me, the fundamental question of the president. After saying at your second inaugural that that war was receding, are we about to essentially declare war on ISIS?
And it appears clear that even if they're declaring war on ISIS as we speak right now, they need to get the American public in some form better behind this. So one of the questions that you asked the president not long ago was, do you need congressional authorization on something like this? The question still stands.
I think it does. I think what they're describing, they have to get congressional authorization. They can't not do. When you have Ben Rhodes, who told our colleague Chris Jansing that he couldn't rule out boots on the ground, well, that tells you they're devising a long-term strategy that they think means more troops in the Middle East. Whether it means truly boots on the ground or not immediately is unclear, but they clearly want that option. You don't get that option without permission from the legislative branch. So I think it's not a matter of if they go to Congress, it's when they decide to do it. Did they do it before the election? I mean, I hate to bring politics into this. Do they do it before the election, which all these guys are totally skittish about, or do they essentially do it on November 5th? My guess is they do it on November 5th.
Obviously, another challenge is what's taking place in Ukraine right now. We're going to take our viewers back there live in a second. Keir Simmons is there literally with tanks and fighting taking place behind him along the eastern Ukrainian border with Russia right now. The president's in a tough spot right here. He's been pushing sanctions, been out ahead of the Europeans for most of this. Now he's getting a little more support from the Europeans right now. What's next? There's the Rapid Response Force, no boots on the ground. What do they do now?
I don't think there's any. I think that, they have been a big. He and himself has basically said you got to have patience with these sanctions. They look at the fact that when the French decided to pull one of these contracts with them, all of a sudden Putin started talking about potential ceasefires and negotiations with Ukraine. So I think that sent a signal to the White House that, you know what, if you do tough new sanctions, maybe you can change Putin, because the wallet does speak louder than anything else with Vladimir Putin.
I want to get some of your thoughts on Meet the Press in a moment, but the last thought is a big headline yesterday closer to home, which was the Virginia former governor, Bob McDonnell, a guy that I covered on the campaign trail, and you and I talked about as a potential number 2 to Mitt Romney not long ago. Now the guy faces years, potentially decades behind bars.
Think about where you were when Paul Ryan was named the running mate. Okay. Standing there in Virginia, who was introducing Mitt Romney? Bob McDonnell. And there was this, he was sort of seen as sort of the face of the Virginia Republican Party, the Republican that was bringing that party together, that was sort of taking it away from this, hardcore conservatism. And 2 years and like 3 weeks later, from that moment where he looked like this potential future star of the Republican Party, he's thinking about going to jail. I'm surprised. It's sort of, the jury acted in common sense. They said they looked at it and it's like, well, of course he was trying to use his office to fix his finances. They believed he was guilty of that. The Virginia law is so shady that you could technically argue, well, maybe they could claim they didn't technically violate the law, but the jury didn't buy that. I think this whole decision by them to claim, well, their marriage was a mess, I think it insulted jurors. I think they said, don't insult our intelligence.
You'll indulge me as we conclude this conversation with one thought. I'm flipping channels last night watching your Green Bay Packers playing the Seattle Seahawks at halftime. Bob Costas introduces the moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, is having an exclusive interview with President Obama this weekend. Absent the fact that it happened during a pack game,
Which is all the more
which part
surreal.
blew your mind most?
The fact that the Packers couldn't score 21 points. I'm going to say that, number
Okay,
one.
fair,
Gosh,
fair.
you know, come on, guys. Look, it's all surreal. It's sort of it's nerve-wracking. It's humbling. It's all the things. And you know, look, when you get an opportunity to do one of the dream jobs in journalism, of course you're excited.
Well, we're proud to witness your success. And
Hopefully
we look forward to
I don't
this.
fall on my face.
We, as you will not, we'll be watching this week.
All
And we'll
right,
have
Peter.
pads out in case it gets messy.
Yeah, you know, that would help.
All right, well,
All
good.
right.
Chuck, good to see you. Thank you. Don't miss, of course, President Obama, as we've noted, on Meet the Press exclusively this Sunday with Chuck Todd. As we said, we're going to go live to Ukraine next.